In the quiet hours of the night, when the world slows and distractions fade into a soft blur, the ancient world begins to whisper again. Long-lost stories rise through the silence like distant echoes, inviting us to lean closer, to listen, and to wonder. Across deserts and oceans, hidden beneath jungles, buried under centuries of shifting sand and drifting time, there are mysteries so profound that even today's best scientists stand before them without answers. These are puzzles carved into stone, encoded in architecture, preserved in myth, and scattered like breadcrumbs across the ruins of forgotten civilizations. And though we walk among advanced machines, satellites, and supercomputers, these ancient enigmas remain strangely untouchable, drifting between what we know and what we only dare to imagine. This journey begins with a simple contrast that has captivated researchers for centuries. How civilizations with limited tools created achievements that still defy modern explanation. We can measure their stones, we can carbon date their remains, we can reconstruct the weather patterns they once lived under, but the deeper why and how still slip through our fingers like sand. Scientists propose theories, revise them, and sometimes abandon them entirely. But the mysteries persist, unchanged and unmoved by our attempts to illuminate them. It is in this tension between certainty and uncertainty that the ancient world becomes most alive. It is here that history and mystery blend, where fact and possibility overlap in a delicate twilight zone rarely acknowledged in broad daylight. As we step into this quiet exploration, the first question begins to form in the background. What did the ancients know that we seem to have forgotten? Their monuments align with stars we barely notice anymore. Their myths describe natural events with an accuracy modern science only recently confirmed. Their engineering feats stand tall after earthquakes, storms, and time itself have tried to erase them. Some of their stories seem to hint at truths hidden behind metaphor, while others present themselves directly and unapologetically, etched in stone, waiting for us to decode them. And yet, for all our fascination, these mysteries do not offer themselves easily. They demand patience, curiosity, and a willingness to step outside the boundaries of what we assume to be true. They ask us to observe the world not as a researcher or a historian, but as a traveler wandering through an ancient landscape where twilight shadows stretch long and every carved symbol might contain a forgotten piece of knowledge. In these moments, science becomes more than data and charts. It becomes a shared dialogue between past and present. As we move deeper, we begin to sense a pattern. The ancient world was not silent. It was deliberate. Structures aligned with celestial bodies were not accidents. Underground chambers carved with impossible precision were not mistakes. Petroglyphs showing strange figures in the sky were not meaningless doodles. These signs and patterns suggest that the people of the past saw the world differently, perhaps more holistically, more symbolically, or more spiritually than we do today. And though researchers have attempted to decode these insights, many questions remain suspended in the air, unanswered. In the soft glow of nighttime reflection, these unanswered questions become invitations. They allow us to slow down and imagine what early observers might have seen when they looked up at the unpolluted night sky. They push us to consider how ancient travelers navigated vast oceans without modern instruments, or how builders created structures that align perfectly with solstices and equinoxes. They encourage us to think of the past, not as a primitive era, but as a chapter brimming with ingenuity, intuition, and perhaps even lost knowledge. Yet the deeper mystery is not only how ancient civilizations achieved what they did, but why they felt compelled to leave so much behind. Monuments, symbols, stories, and warnings carved into stone with the intention of outliving entire cultures. What were they trying to preserve? What message did they hope the distant future would uncover? Scientists study these clues with disciplined curiosity, forming hypotheses that stretch between geology, astronomy, anthropology, and engineering. Some explanations bring clarity, while others spark new questions. And occasionally, there are anomalies details so out of place, so resistant to explanation, that they challenge the limits of traditional thinking altogether. These anomalies are where the mystery deepens. They're the knots in the rope of history, the points where logic falters and wonder takes over. And it is precisely these knots that continue to leave scientists speechless. As we begin this long exploration of ancient enigmas, the night becomes our companion. The world quiets, our thoughts slow, and the threshold between known and unknown becomes easier to approach. We allow ourselves to drift into the spaces between documented fact and whispered legend. We relax into the possibility that the past may still hold secrets capable of reshaping our understanding of human history. It is in this spirit of calm curiosity that our journey begins, slowly, gently, with an open mind and a willingness to question the stories we've inherited. In a world filled with constant noise, there is something deeply comforting about the mysteries that refuse to reveal themselves. They remind us that not everything must be solved to be meaningful. Some things are meant to be explored, pondered, and felt rather than dissected. And so, as the veil of the ancient world lifts just slightly, we begin our descent into the first of many mysteries. Each one a doorway to deeper questions, each one a quiet echo of civilizations long gone, yet strangely present. What emerges from this journey will not be definitive answers, but a renewed appreciation for the vastness of human history and the quiet power of the unknown. The past, after all, is not lost. It is simply waiting for us to listen. As our journey drifts deeper into the realm of ancient enigmas, the landscape begins to shift from familiar ground into territory shaped by mystery and silence. Here, at the threshold between what we understand and what we only pretend to understand, lies one of humanity's oldest questions. How did ancient civilizations achieve feats so complex that even the most advanced modern tools struggle to replicate them? Standing before these monuments today, it becomes clear that the stones themselves carry a quiet defiance, as though they were shaped not only by human hands, but by knowledge that has long since slipped away from us. Across continents and separated by thousands of years, cultures that never met created structures with astonishing precision. Some aligned perfectly with solar events, others with lunar cycles, and many with specific stars or constellations that held particular meaning. These alignments are not subtle or accidental. They are deliberate and exact. They reveal a level of astronomical understanding so refined that modern researchers often find themselves revisiting old assumptions. How could such accuracy exist in a world without telescopes, satellites, or databases? The question lingers, soft but persistent. When we examine the engineering itself, the mystery deepens. Massive stones quarried from great distances appear in locations where no rivers, wheels, or beasts of burden were available to transport them. Blocks weighing hundreds of tons were lifted into place with precision so flawless that even a razor blade cannot slide between them today. Some stones are shaped with cuts so smooth they appear almost machined, while others show interlocking patterns too intricate for simple tools. These techniques suggest not merely skill, but an understanding of physics and material science far beyond what has been attributed to these cultures. Scientists often attempt to recreate these achievements using experimental archaeology. Teams build replicas with ropes, wooden sleds, and stone hammers. They push, pull, lift, and maneuver, yet even with groups of dozens or hundreds, they rarely achieve results anywhere near the scale of the originals. And even when they succeed in part, they struggle to explain how ancient builders managed the same feats repeatedly, consistently, and across vast regions. The experiments prove possibility, but they do not explain practicality. They show theory, but not mastery. This gap between what is theoretically doable and what was actually accomplished forms one of the great paradoxes of ancient engineering. It is the place where knowledge seems to flicker between light and shadow, offering glimpses but never full clarity. The deeper researchers look, the more unusual details they uncover. Identical construction methods appearing in cultures separated by oceans, stones shaped with geometric precision centuries before mathematics formally described such forms, and structures that withstand earthquakes better than many modern buildings. These clues, though scattered, form a quiet pattern that suggests the ancients were working with principles not yet fully understood. Yet, the most intriguing part of these mysteries is not the stones themselves, but the mindset that shaped them. Ancient builders appear to take the impossible as a challenge rather than a limit. They did not seem intimidated by scale or complexity. Instead, they approached their world with an intuitive confidence, as though the relationship between earth, sky, and human purpose was clearer to them than it is to us. They built not only for function, but for eternity. Every structure carried meaning, symbolism, and connection to forces far greater than their own lives. This perspective becomes even more compelling when we consider that many of these civilizations vanished without leaving behind detailed explanations of how they achieved what they did. Their writings, if they existed, decayed. Their oral traditions faded. Their knowledge dissolved into the currents of time. All that remains are the structures themselves, silent, immovable, enduring. These monuments stand not as answers, but as questions carved in stone. While scientists strive to interpret these questions through logic and data, others look through the lens of myth, legend, and cultural memory. Many ancient societies preserve stories that describe the builders of these great works as possessing extraordinary abilities or receiving guidance from mysterious visitors, sometimes celestial, sometimes spiritual, sometimes simply described as those who came before us. Historians often categorize these accounts as symbolic or exaggerated, but the consistency across cultures is difficult to ignore. Why did so many ancient people believe their ancestors were taught by someone or something beyond ordinary human experience? Of course, mythology is not literal, but myth often preserves fragments of truth, encoded in metaphor and imagination. The patterns hidden within these stories suggest that ancient people were trying to explain encounters with knowledge they did not fully understand. To them, the source of this knowledge must have seemed otherworldly, profound, or divine. Modern researchers take a more measured view. Many propose that lost technologies, forgotten techniques, or simply different ways of perceiving the world contributed to these achievements. Perhaps ancient cultures possessed knowledge we have not yet rediscovered, knowledge about resonance, leverage, astronomy, or material properties. Perhaps their understanding of the natural world was more intuitive and more deeply integrated with daily life than our own. In our digital age, we often rely on devices to see what previous generations observed with the naked eye. There is another layer to this mystery, one that unsettles even seasoned scientists. Some ancient structures show evidence of knowledge not only advanced for their time, but accurate by modern standards. Alignments that match celestial positions thousands of years in the past or future. Predictive cycles carved into stone that mirror modern astronomical algorithms. Geological choices that maximize stability and longevity. Acoustics so refined that they manipulate sound in ways modern engineers still study. These are not traits of trial and error. They are traits of intention. And still, despite all our tools, satellites, and simulations, we continue to stand before these creations puzzled, impressed, humbled, and silent. The ancients seem to speak through these structures, not with words, but with a kind of mathematical poetry. A language that resonates through geometry, symmetry, proportion, and alignment. A language we are slowly learning to interpret, but have not yet mastered. As nighttime settles deeper around us, these questions take on a dreamlike quality. They are not confrontational or urgent. They simply exist, steady and patient. They invite us to reflect on the possibility that human history may be far older, richer, and more interconnected than we realize. They suggest that perhaps our ancestors were not primitive at all, but profoundly attuned to realities we are only beginning to rediscover. This section of the journey closes with a gentle realization. The mysteries of ancient engineering are not merely technical puzzles. They are windows into a worldview that saw earth and sky as a unified canvas, where spiritual meaning and scientific insight were not separate paths, but intertwined expressions of the same truth. The structures they left behind are not just remnants of past civilizations. They are reminders of human potential, of what we once understood deeply and may one day understand again. And as we continue forward, this quiet wonder becomes the bridge to the next chapter, where the mysteries grow even deeper and the questions begin to take shape in new and unexpected ways. As we drift deeper into the world of ancient mysteries, the landscape shifts once again. What began as a study of engineering and craftsmanship now opens into something even more elusive, an invisible thread that seems to connect distant civilizations across continents and oceans. These cultures, separated by thousands of miles and with no known means of contact, somehow created symbols, structures, and stories that echo one another with uncanny similarity. It is here, in these echoes, that the mystery deepens, suggesting not random coincidence, but perhaps a shared origin of knowledge long forgotten. Imagine standing among the ruins of an ancient temple in South America. The stones rise around you with precision, their edges interlocking like pieces of an elegant puzzle. Now imagine traveling across the world to Egypt or Cambodia or the islands of the Pacific, only to find the same patterns repeating themselves. Architectural styles that mirror one another, celestial alignments that point to identical stars, and myths that describe the same great floods, sky beings, or golden ages that ended in catastrophe. These parallels are so consistent that they create a quiet tension in the mind. Did these civilizations uncover the same truths independently, or were they inheritors of knowledge passed down from a source we have yet to identify? Scientists often attribute these similarities to universal human patterns. The idea that people everywhere respond to similar environmental challenges in similar ways. But some details resist this explanation. The geometry carved into stones thousands of miles apart is not just alike in spirit. It is mathematically specific. The star maps engraved in ancient chambers across multiple cultures highlight the same celestial markers. Even more mysterious, some of these markers correspond to positions in the sky that would have been visible only tens of thousands of years ago, far earlier than these civilizations are believed to have existed. This introduces a quiet but persistent question. How far back does human knowledge truly reach? Archaeologists often work within well-defined timelines, but the Earth does not always comply with those boundaries. Evidence emerges, then disappears beneath political shifts, environmental decay, or simple chance. And sometimes, discoveries are made that push against the accepted timeline. Artifacts older than they should be, maps showing coastlines before the last ice age, bones and tools that rewrite chapters of human history. These anomalies are often debated, sometimes dismissed, and occasionally acknowledged, but they never fully fade. They remain as subtle reminders that our understanding of the past may be incomplete. In this twilight zone of ancient parallels, it becomes clear that history is not a straight line. It is a mosaic with missing pieces. And one of the most intriguing pieces involves the possibility of lost civilizations. Not mythical kingdoms made of fantasy, but real cultures that flourished during periods now erased by natural disasters or shifts in climate. If such civilizations once existed, they could have served as bridges of knowledge between continents long before our textbooks say global contact was possible. This idea gains strength from the myths themselves. Nearly every ancient culture preserves stories of a great catastrophe, floods, fires, sinking lands, or falling stars, that ended an age of wisdom. These stories describe ancestors who possessed extraordinary skill, who watched the skies, understood the seasons, and built early structures of remarkable sophistication. Whether viewed literally or metaphorically, these tales preserve a memory. Something came before. Something was lost, and traces of it were carried forward by the survivors. In the stillness of the night, when imagination and logic walk side by side, This possibility begins to feel less like fiction and more like an unanswered question waiting patiently at the doorway of discovery. The ruins, the symbols, the alignments, they are clues, not conclusions. And they seem to point toward a deeper layer of human history that is just now beginning to reveal itself. Consider the ancient obsession with the stars. Civilizations across the world oriented their cities, pyramids, temples, and ceremonial sites with remarkable precision toward constellations, solstices, equinoxes, and the movements of the Milky Way. They built observatories long before telescopes existed, and some of their astronomical calculations remain astonishingly accurate even today. How did they learn to track the heavens with such expertise? And more importantly, why did they believe this knowledge mattered so deeply? For modern humans, the sky is often a backdrop, beautiful but distant. For the ancients, it was a living map, a guide, a teacher. They saw cycles in the stars that mirrored cycles on Earth. Seasons, tides, climates, and even social rhythms. This interconnected worldview appears again and again, whether in the glyphs of the Maya, the myths of the Greeks, the stone circles of Britain, or the ceremonial structures of indigenous cultures. These threads, woven across time and geography, create a tapestry of understanding that feels too consistent to be dismissed. Scientists studying these connections try to determine whether such parallels arose independently or through forgotten contact. Some lean toward coincidence, others toward influence, and a few toward the possibility of shared ancestry older than our records suggest. Each perspective brings its own insights, yet none fully explains the depth of the similarities. The evidence sits delicately balanced between what is known and what is still hidden. One of the most compelling parallels lies in the global recurrence of pyramid-like architecture. From Egypt to Mesopotamia, from Mesoamerica to the remote regions of China, from the Indonesian islands to prehistoric Europe, pyramidal structures appear again and again. Though their materials may differ, limestone, brick, earth, or volcanic rock, and their purposes may vary, tombs, temples, observatories, their geometry remains strikingly consistent. The shape itself seems to carry a timeless significance. It is as if ancient civilizations instinctively understood that pyramids were not only symbolic, but functional, stabilizing, and energetically meaningful. The recurrence of this form raises yet another quiet question. Did these cultures discover the same architectural principles through trial and error, or did they inherit a shared blueprint rooted in a forgotten chapter of human development? While theories vary, one truth remains. These ancient structures continue to speak, even when words fail. Their alignments point to the stars. Their proportions encode mathematical relationships. Their placement in the landscape hints at deeper knowledge of energy, water, and resonance. Scientists can analyze these aspects, but interpretation requires more than analysis. It requires imagination, humility, and an acceptance that the past may be far more mysterious than we allow ourselves to believe. As this section draws to a close, we find ourselves standing in a space between worlds, the documented and the speculative, the known and the hinted at. The connections between distant civilizations remain one of the most mesmerizing riddles of ancient history. They whisper of something shared, something deep, something quietly powerful that binds human experience across time and geography. And as we move forward, the mystery does not fade. Instead, it expands, gently guiding us toward the next layer of this journey, where the line between history and legend becomes thinner, and where the ancient world reveals even more of its strange, beautiful, and unexplainable wonders. As we continue drifting through the shadowed corridors of the ancient world, a new theme begins to emerge, one that blurs the line between science and myth, between natural forces and something that feels almost intentional. Across continents and throughout history, there are stories of celestial events so vivid and powerful that they shaped entire cultures. These were not quiet observations of the night sky, but dramatic episodes, blazing comets, shifting stars, sudden darkness, unexplained lights, and cosmic alignments that transformed the way ancient people understood their place in the universe. These events became catalysts for architecture, religion, and even societal direction, leaving modern researchers both fascinated and perplexed. When ancient eyes turned upward, the sky was not a distant spectacle. It was a living theater where gods, ancestors, and cosmic beings revealed their presence. Every flicker of light carried meaning. Every unusual celestial pattern stirred both awe and fear. These interpretations were not naive. They were deeply rooted in careful observation and memory passed down through generations. Today's scientists, armed with modern instruments, often confirm that these myths describe real astronomical phenomena. Solar cycles, planetary movements, shifting constellations, and rare cosmic events appear encoded in stories preserved by cultures separated by thousands of years. One of the most intriguing elements is the recurring description of bright, fiery objects streaking across the sky. Objects that seem to appear with a purpose, linger for a time, and then vanish. These accounts exist in nearly every ancient civilization. Some describe them as chariots of the gods, others as celestial messengers, and a few as warnings of great change. The scientific explanation points toward comets or meteor events. Yet the precision with which ancient cultures tracked these appearances often surpasses what early technology should have allowed. More mysterious still are the myths that describe stars behaving in impossible ways, shifting from one place in the sky to another, splitting into multiple lights, or growing brighter and dimmer in patterns that match certain astronomical cycles discovered only recently. These echoes of observation hint that the ancients were not merely storytelling. They were documenting events with the tools and language available to them. They recorded what they saw with symbolic accuracy, encoding information in ways modern researchers are only now beginning to decipher. The fascination intensifies when we examine ancient structures that appear deliberately aligned with rare celestial events. Some temples receive a single beam of sunlight only once a year, illuminating a hidden chamber with mathematical precision. Others create shadow patterns that mark equinoxes, solstices, or the cycles of Venus. In some cases, the alignments correspond to star positions that would have been visible only during particular epochs, suggesting that the structures were either built far earlier than believed or aligned according to ancient memories of the sky passed down over long periods. The question that arises gently in the background is this: were these people simply exceptional observers, or did they have access to astronomical knowledge beyond what we traditionally attribute to them? Some researchers argue that meticulous observation across generations allowed ancients to build a sophisticated understanding of celestial cycles. This explanation holds truth. Patience and time can indeed reveal patterns. Yet, in many cases, the precision is so remarkable and the time spans so vast that the origin of this knowledge becomes difficult to trace. How can a civilization that existed for only a few centuries track star positions that shift over millennia due to precession? How did different cultures, oceans apart, record the same rare, celestial alignments with such similarity? These questions linger like distant echoes in the night sky, neither loud nor conclusive, but persistent. Adding to the enigma are the myths of visitors from the stars. While these stories vary in shape and tone, they share curious similarities. They describe luminous beings descending from the heavens, imparting wisdom, guiding early humans, and then returning to the sky. Some myths refer to these visitors as gods, others as ancestors, and a few as travelers from distant realms. Whether metaphorical or literal, these tales reflect a human attempt to explain moments of contact with knowledge that seem to arrive suddenly, without origin. Modern scientists approach these stories with caution. They recognize the symbolic nature of mythology, but also acknowledge that myths can preserve fragments of genuine historical events. Some propose natural explanations, unusual astronomical events misinterpreted as divine encounters, atmospheric phenomena, or psychological responses to celestial displays. Others remain open to more speculative interpretations, understanding that the ancient world was rich with experiences we do not fully understand. What makes these myths compelling is not only their content, but their global consistency. Cultures that never interacted described remarkably similar episodes. Bright visitors descending from the sky, teaching agriculture, astronomy, or architecture, and then departing with the promise of return. Even if interpreted symbolically, these stories suggest a moment in human history when knowledge advanced abruptly rather than gradually. Something changed. Something arrived. Something inspired. As we drift through these ancient tales, a gentle pattern begins to form. Many monumental structures appear to act not only as temples or tombs, but as observatories designed to record and honor the sky. They act as cosmic calendars, tracking the heavens with silent dedication across centuries. They preserve information not for immediate use, but for future generations, future watchers, who would continue the dialogue between Earth and the starry expanse above. This raises another profound question. Were these structures built solely for practical purposes, or were they meant to preserve a cosmic memory? And if so, what memory did they hope we would uncover? Some scientists believe the ancients were warning future generations about cyclical cosmic events, catastrophic occurrences such as asteroid impacts, solar changes, or environmental shifts triggered by astronomical cycles. Others believe the alignments are celebratory, honoring the harmony between the heavens and the earth. A few suggest they encode forgotten knowledge about the universe, hidden in plain sight through geometry and orientation. Regardless of interpretation, the result is the same. These ancient structures remain silent witnesses to celestial rhythms older than recorded history. Their alignments, proportions, and positions whisper of a worldview that saw human existence as part of a greater cosmic dance, a dance between light and darkness, order and chaos, certainty and mystery. The ancients built not only with stone, but with intention, embedding messages into the landscape for those who would someday notice. As this section draws to a close, the night deepens. The stars above shimmer with the same quiet brilliance that guided our ancestors. Their ancient patterns remain unchanged, yet our understanding of them continues to evolve. We stand on the border between what they knew and what we seek to rediscover. And slowly, gently, the path ahead opens into even deeper mysteries, those that lie hidden beneath the earth, preserved in chambers and labyrinths untouched for thousands of years. Our journey continues toward those secrets, as softly as a tide moving inland, carrying us to the next chapter where the unknown grows even more compelling. Beneath the surface of our world, hidden under layers of soil, stone, and time, lie some of the most perplexing structures ever discovered. Underground complexes built with such precision and scale that their existence challenges everything we believe about ancient civilizations. As we enter this next chapter of our journey, the descent feels almost symbolic, as though we are moving not only downward into the earth, but deeper into the forgotten chapters of human history. These subterranean realms offer a different kind of mystery, one carved in darkness, silence, and intention. They reveal secrets that daylight often overlooks. Across the world, vast underground chambers, tunnels, and labyrinths have been discovered, many of them carved long before advanced tools existed. Some stretch for miles beneath modern cities, while others descend into the earth through narrow passages that open into enormous halls. These spaces were not created randomly. Their geometry is deliberate, their placement thoughtful, and their construction techniques astonishing. Even today, with modern drilling equipment, engineers struggle to explain how the ancients carved through solid rock with such accuracy. Yet these structures exist, untouched by time except for dust and echoes. One of the most astonishing features of these underground realms is their complexity. Some include ventilation shafts engineered so skillfully that fresh air still circulates thousands of years later. Others contain water channels designed to manage temperature, humidity, or even acoustics. The deeper one travels, the more it becomes clear that these structures served purposes far greater than shelter. They were centers of ritual, knowledge, safety, or observation, spaces meant to protect, preserve, or perhaps conceal something precious. Scientists examining these structures face challenges unlike those above ground. Light behaves differently in enclosed stone passages. Sound bounces and warps in strange ways. Instruments detect unusual magnetic signatures in certain chambers. These anomalies raise subtle questions. Were these effects accidental, or were they engineered intentionally by ancient builders who understood far more about physics, sound, and environmental control than we assume? Some underground complexes contain chambers that amplify whispers into clear echoes. Others remain utterly silent, absorbing sound in ways that feel unnatural. A few seem designed to resonate at specific frequencies, hinting at rituals involving chanting, music, or meditation. These acoustic mysteries are not easily dismissed. Modern engineers study them to understand how such effects occur naturally, but in many cases, the precision is too refined to be a simple accident of geometry. Then there are the symbols found etched into the walls, markings that resemble constellations, mythical beings, spirals, and geometric patterns. Some align with astronomical events just as precisely as the structures above ground. This suggests a continuity of purpose. The ancients did not merely observe the sky. They brought its patterns into the earth itself. It is as though they believed the heavens and the underground world were reflections of one another, or two halves of a greater cosmic story. This realization opens a gentle doorway into another question. Why go underground at all? What prompted ancient cultures to carve entire cities below the surface, instead of building upward into the light? The answers vary across regions and time periods. Some archaeologists propose that these complexes were created as refuges during war or disaster. Others suggest they served as ceremonial spaces where initiates underwent spiritual training or rites of passage. A few theories propose they acted as repositories for knowledge, libraries or archives protected from natural disasters such as floods, fires, or cosmic events. Yet, there is another possibility, one echoed in ancient myths from around the world. Many cultures speak of a time when the surface of the earth became dangerous, when fire rained from the sky, when the air grew toxic, or when darkness covered the land for prolonged periods. During such times, the stories say, people retreated into the earth, guided by those who possessed advanced understanding. Whether these accounts describe metaphor or memory, they hint at a deeper pattern. The underground was seen not merely as a refuge, but as a sacred space of renewal and continuity. What complicates these mysteries is the consistency found across continents. Underground cities in Turkey resemble ancient steppe tunnels in Central America. Chambers in India mirror those in the Mediterranean. Pathways carved beneath the Andes share features with subterranean passages in Southeast Asia. These similarities are not exact copies, but they suggest a shared idea, a global impulse to build downward with intention and care. Even more intriguing are the ventilation systems. Some complexes remain cool and breathable despite their depth. The engineering required to achieve this would challenge even modern architects. How did ancient builders understand airflow without advanced tools? How did they calculate the angles and lengths of shafts to maintain stable circulation? These questions remain unanswered, leaving researchers in a state of quiet awe. But perhaps the deepest mystery lies in what the ancients chose to hide or protect within these underground realms. Archaeologists have discovered sealed chambers with no entrances, as though intentionally closed off to time. Some contain artifacts arranged in precise patterns, while others hold nothing at all, as though they were built as symbolic voids. The intentional emptiness is more enigmatic than the objects. These spaces feel like messages that were never finished, or perhaps never meant to be understood by us. In some cases, underground complexes connect to natural caverns, suggesting that the ancients explored far beyond what was necessary for survival. They studied the earth beneath their feet with the same reverence they gave to the sky above. This duality, light and darkness, surface and depth, reflects a worldview that embraced balance and harmony between different realms of existence. Modern researchers continue to map these subterranean networks using scanning technologies, yet many passages remain unexplored due to instability or depth. Each discovery widens the horizon of what we thought ancient civilizations were capable of. The narrative of primitive tools and simple lives becomes increasingly difficult to sustain in the face of hallways carved with mathematical exactness and chambers designed with acoustic properties modern builders can barely replicate. As we rise gently from these underground worlds and return to the surface, a quiet understanding lingers. These structures were more than architectural achievements. They were expressions of a philosophy, a way of seeing the world where the hidden was just as important as the visible. They remind us that the ancients were not merely building for themselves, but for generations far beyond their own time. And as we prepare to continue this journey, the path ahead becomes clearer. The next mysteries we encounter will not only challenge our sense of engineering or astronomy, but will touch on the deeper realms of memory, myth, and the forces that shaped human consciousness. Something ancient stirs beneath these stories, guiding us gently toward an even more profound layer of the past. As our journey continues, we now step into a realm where ancient knowledge appears not only carved into stone or hidden beneath the ground, but encoded into rituals, symbols, and practices that have survived for thousands of years. These remnants of wisdom drift quietly across different civilizations, each carrying fragments of insight about the natural world, the human body, and forces we still struggle to understand. Though science today excels at measuring the physical world, there's a subtle sense that something older, more intuitive, once guided humanity, a kind of knowledge that blended the spiritual with the practical, the symbolic with the scientific. When we examine ancient cultures closely, we find rituals that mimic celestial cycles, ceremonies that resonate with natural energies, and healing techniques that align with principles we are only now beginning to rediscover. Elements like sound, vibration, water, magnetism, and sacred geometry appear again and again, woven into temples, manuscripts, and traditions that span continents. These were not arbitrary practices. They were purposeful, deeply considered, and often astonishingly effective. One of the most striking examples is the use of sound. Across the ancient world, certain chambers, structures, and instruments were crafted with precision to generate specific tones or resonances. These frequencies were believed to heal, to calm, or to induce altered states of awareness. Modern researchers studying these ancient sound chambers find that many act like natural amplifiers, vibrating the body at frequencies that can influence heart rate, brain waves, and emotional states. Long before modern science explored the therapeutic effects of sound, the ancients understood its power intuitively. Another thread of forgotten knowledge emerges through the use of geometry, particularly patterns like spirals, circles, squares, and triangles. These shapes appear not only in art, but in temple layouts, ceremonial objects, and ancient manuscripts. They seem to encode principles of harmony, balance, and proportion. Many of these geometric patterns represent mathematical relationships discovered by modern scholars. Yet the ancients used them effortlessly, as though guided by an innate sense of the universe's structure. And then there is the mystery of sacred water systems. Some ancient sites were built around springs that flow with unusual purity or temperature stability. Others include underground channels designed to move water in ways that enhance acoustics, generate cooling effects, or create symbolic pathways, mirroring celestial rivers like the Milky Way. These water systems sometimes show knowledge of hydrodynamics that seems remarkably advanced for their time. It is as though the builders understood not only the spiritual symbolism of water, but its physical properties as well. When we consider these elements, sound, geometry, water, we begin to see a pattern. Ancient knowledge was holistic. It did not divide the world into separate categories like science, spirituality, or art. Instead, It viewed the universe as a unified whole, where every force interacted with every other. This worldview shaped practices that today might seem mysterious, but were once essential to daily life. Even more perplexing are the healing techniques preserved in ancient traditions. Some methods involve herbs and minerals whose chemical properties have only recently been studied. Others rely on pressure points, breathing techniques, or energy pathways that correspond closely with modern discoveries in physiology and neuroscience. Acupuncture, for example, traces its origins to ancient China. Yet modern imaging technology shows that many acupuncture points align with networks of connective tissue and nerve clusters. How did early practitioners map these pathways without advanced tools? Similarly, ancient Indian texts describe concepts like prana and nadis, subtle energies and channels within the body. While these ideas were once dismissed as mythological, a growing number of scientific studies suggest that the body indeed carries electrical and vibrational patterns that influence health and emotion. Once again, the ancients seem to have perceived truths that modern science is only now beginning to articulate. What complicates matters is that much of this knowledge appears suddenly in historical records, without clear signs of gradual development. Ancient manuscripts present complete systems of healing, astronomy, and spirituality as if they arrived fully formed. These systems are too complex to have emerged purely through trial and error, yet their origins remain shrouded in mystery. Who created these frameworks? How were they first discovered? Why do so many of them align with principles confirmed by modern research? Some scholars suggest that ancient societies had centuries to observe natural rhythms, allowing them to develop profound insights through patience and deep attention. Others propose that early cultures may have inherited knowledge from even older civilizations erased by natural disasters or the passage of time. It is also possible that early humans possessed a heightened sensitivity to natural forces, one we have lost through modern life's noise and speed. Mythology adds another layer of intrigue. Many ancient stories describe culture bringers, mysterious beings who taught humanity how to plant crops, build shelters, study the stars, and heal the sick. Whether these figures were symbolic or represented real individuals is impossible to say. But the consistent theme across cultures is that knowledge did not originate solely from within early human communities. Something or someone played a guiding role. Today, researchers continue to analyze ancient texts, inscriptions, and artifacts with fresh curiosity. When viewed through the lens of modern science, many myths transform into surprisingly accurate descriptions of natural events. Rituals once considered superstitious turn out to encode environmental wisdom, psychological insight, or scientific observation. Ancient calendars align with astronomical cycles we now understand mathematically. Sacred geometry reflects energetic and structural principles used in modern architecture and engineering. Yet, despite these breakthroughs, a subtle sense of loss lingers. We suspect that much of the ancient world's wisdom has vanished, buried with lost libraries, destroyed temples, and broken oral traditions. What remains are fragments, enough to inspire wonder, but not enough to reconstruct the full picture. And perhaps that is part of the mystery's beauty. It reminds us that human knowledge is not linear but cyclical, rising and falling with civilizations, shaped by memory and forgetting. As we step gently back from these ancient practices, a calm realization settles over us. The ancients were not primitive observers fumbling in darkness. They were sensitive explorers of both the visible and invisible worlds. They understood that life could not be measured solely by tools or equations. They sensed the subtle energies that flow through nature, the patterns that govern movement, and the rhythms that bind Earth to the cosmos. Their knowledge survived not because it was simple, but because it resonated deeply with human experience. Even now, thousands of years later, we practice rituals that echo their wisdom. We meditate to calm the mind, align our breath with our emotions, use sound to soothe, and return to nature to feel whole again. In quieter moments, when the world slows, we feel the ancient truths stir within us, unchanged by time. As this chapter closes, the path ahead becomes clearer. The mysteries we face next will not only involve hidden knowledge or forgotten rituals, but the forces of nature themselves, the earthquakes, celestial cycles, and atmospheric phenomena that shaped ancient lives and continue to shape ours. Our journey continues, carrying us gently toward the next layer of discovery, where science and myth once again meet in the soft glow of mystery. As we move gently from the realm of ancient rituals and forgotten sciences, a subtle shift begins to take place. The mysteries we have explored so far, monuments aligned with stars, underground cities carved with impossible precision, knowledge encoded in sound and geometry, create a foundation that leads us naturally toward a new question. How did ancient civilizations interpret the forces of nature that shaped their world? The transition from spiritual insight to environmental understanding is not abrupt. It unfolds like twilight melting into night, soft and continuous, each layer revealing more of the story. Across the ancient world, people lived in far closer harmony with natural forces than we do today. They felt the pulse of the earth through tremors and shifting seasons. They watched the sky with unwavering attention, noting the patterns of wind, rainfall, and celestial events. They understood that nature was both a nurturing presence and a powerful force, capable of reshaping landscapes overnight. This awareness seeped into their myths, their architecture, their ceremonies, and their daily lives. Their stories of gods and cosmic beings often mirrored real natural cycles, storms that brought destruction, rivers that flooded with purpose, seasons that dictated survival. Modern science, with its precise instruments and satellite records, can measure these forces with accuracy. Yet the ancients perceived them with a different kind of clarity, one shaped by immersion rather than observation. They sensed the subtle signs before an earthquake, the behavior of animals, the tension in the ground, the changes in air and temperature. They recognized shifts in weather patterns long before storm clouds gathered. They understood natural rhythms, not as external events, but as living expressions of the world they inhabited. This connection to nature did more than guide survival. It cultivated a philosophy, a worldview rooted in balance. Many ancient structures reflect this balance, built in places that respond harmoniously to geological and atmospheric forces. Temples were placed where the Earth's energy felt stable, where wind patterns created natural ventilation, where sunlight flowed in ways that marked the passage of time. These design choices were practical, but they were also deeply symbolic, each decision reflecting a desire to align with the natural world rather than dominate it. As we stand between ancient intuition and modern understanding, the contrast reveals something profound. Science today often views nature as a series of measurable events, quakes, storms, tides, cycles. But the ancients saw these events as conversations between earth and sky, between humans and the universe. They interpreted natural disasters not as random occurrences, but as messages, warnings, or shifts in cosmic harmony. While modern perspectives may not embrace the spiritual language of those interpretations, the underlying awareness that the world is interconnected, that forces shape one another in subtle and unseen ways, remains remarkably relevant. This bridge between ancient perception and modern analysis becomes even more intriguing when we consider how many ancient warnings have proven scientifically accurate. Stories of great floods correspond with geological evidence of rising seas. Myths describing periods of darkness align with records of volcanic eruptions. Cultural memories of shifting stars mirror the slow movements of constellations across millennia. These connections show that ancient stories were not mere imagination. They were observations preserved in symbolic form. As we prepare to continue deeper into the mysteries surrounding natural forces, this moment serves as a gentle pause, a place where reflection settles softly over the journey so far. We have explored structures, symbols, rituals, and knowledge systems. Now, The path ahead leads us toward the forces that shaped those systems. The earthquakes, the celestial cycles, the storms, and the events that transformed entire civilizations. The next mysteries will show us not only how ancient people responded to nature, but how they predicted, interpreted, and integrated those forces into their worldview. With this bridge complete, we step forward with quiet anticipation, ready to explore the next layer of ancient wonder, where nature itself becomes the storyteller, and where the past reveals yet another set of enigmas that even today's scientists struggle to fully understand. As we step deeper into the unfolding tapestry of ancient mysteries, we arrive at a place where history meets the raw forces of the earth. Forces so immense, so unpredictable, that they shaped entire civilizations and altered the course of human destiny. In this quiet moment of reflection, we turn our attention to the natural catastrophes of antiquity. These events, earthquakes, floods, volcanic eruptions, shifting climates, left imprints not only on the land, but on human memory, mythology, architecture, and belief systems. Even now, thousands of years later, their echoes continue to ripple through scientific research, offering clues that both illuminate and deepen the mysteries of the ancient world. When ancient societies experienced natural disasters, they did not view them merely as geological or meteorological events. They saw them as cosmic warnings, messages from the heavens, or turning points in the balance between the natural and the supernatural. Their interpretations were shaped by fear, awe, and reverence, but also by a profound attentiveness to the patterns that preceded disaster. They noticed the subtle changes: animals fleeing before earthquakes, ash clouds dimming the sun, long droughts breaking with sudden and catastrophic rains. These observations became woven into myth, preserved as lessons for future generations. One of the most enduring examples of ancient catastrophe is the memory of the Great Flood. Found in stories across Mesopotamia, India, China, the Americas, and even remote island cultures, the flood narrative describes a moment when the world was nearly erased beneath rising waters. For centuries, scholars debated whether these stories were metaphorical or based on real events. Today, geological evidence supports the possibility of massive ancient floods triggered by melting glaciers, shifting rivers, or sudden collapses of natural ice dams. The notion that early civilizations experienced devastating deluges is no longer dismissed. It is accepted as part of Earth's turbulent history. But the flood is only one chapter in a larger story of natural upheaval. Ancient cities, such as Pompeii and Akrotiri, were destroyed in minutes by volcanic eruptions so powerful they reshaped the climate of the entire region. Earthquakes reduced monumental temples to rubble, toppled statues, and altered coastlines. Entire societies disappeared seemingly overnight, leaving behind ruins that even modern archaeologists struggle to interpret. These catastrophes were not isolated events. They were part of recurring cycles of destruction and renewal that shaped human development. What makes these ancient disasters particularly fascinating is the way civilizations responded to them. Instead of abandoning vulnerable regions, many chose to rebuild, often with improved engineering, new architectural techniques, or redesigned city layouts. Some temples were reinforced against tremors, others elevated above flood levels, or aligned with geological features believed to be sacred or protective. It is as though each catastrophe taught a lesson that became embedded in the next phase of construction, blending practical engineering with spiritual symbolism. In some cases, the disasters themselves gave rise to monumental structures. After massive eruptions, people built shrines honoring the forces that had nearly destroyed them. After devastating storms, they created myths to explain the power of the winds and tides. These stories guided future generations, helping them navigate the delicate relationship between human life and the unpredictability of nature. Modern scientists studying these ancient responses find intriguing insights hidden in the ruins. Some structures designed thousands of years ago exhibit earthquake-resistant features similar to modern techniques. Flexible stone joints, interlocking blocks, shock-absorbing foundations. These innovations reflect an understanding of geological stress that should have been far beyond the reach of early builders. Yet they appear repeatedly across different cultures, suggesting a pattern. Ancient peoples learned from the earth, adapted to its movements, and encoded their knowledge in stone. Perhaps even more mysterious are the civilizations that seem to anticipate catastrophe. In the Andes, certain temples show evidence of deliberate abandonment before major geological events occurred. In Mesopotamia, agricultural shifts appear timed with climatic changes predicted through astronomical observation. In the Pacific, some oral traditions describe islands sinking long before geological surveys confirmed historical sea level rise. These patterns suggest that the ancients may have recognized warning signs invisible to modern eyes, or that their knowledge of cycles, both celestial and earthly, was far more advanced than we assume. This brings us to a subtle yet profound realization. Ancient cultures perceive time differently. Where modern society focuses on years or decades, the ancients often thought in terms of centuries or even millennia. They observed patterns over generations, watching how stars, seasons, and geological forces intertwined. They understood that the earth itself follows rhythms, cycles of creation and destruction, growth and decline. Some of these cycles are now confirmed through scientific research, such as precession, solar variation, and long-term climate shifts. Yet, the fact that ancient people recognized these patterns without advanced instruments remains one of history's quiet marvels. Of course, not all ancient interpretations were scientific. Many were symbolic, blending observation with spiritual meaning. But even in these myths, there are whispers of truth. Volcanic eruptions were described as battles between gods, yet the imagery mirrors real ash clouds blotting out the sun. Earthquakes were described as movements of a great serpent beneath the earth, but the symbolism captures the sudden, unpredictable shifts of tectonic plates. Solar eclipses were seen as cosmic devourings of the sun, yet the descriptions reflect precise awareness of celestial mechanics. What emerges is a picture of ancient people who were not ignorant or naive, but deeply attuned to the world around them. They understood danger, respected power, and sought harmony with forces beyond their control. Their myths were not childish explanations. They were coded memories, preserved in a form that would outlast written records. As we absorb these insights, a gentle sense of connection begins to form. We, too, live in a world shaped by natural forces. Our technology allows us to measure, predict, and model, but we still find ourselves humbled by earthquakes, storms, fires, and climate shifts. The ancients understood this humility well. They expressed it through ritual, architecture, story, and resilience. And now, as this chapter draws to a close, the journey ahead becomes even more compelling. For beyond natural disasters lies another category of ancient enigma, moments where the boundaries between the known and the unknown seem to blur entirely. Events described in ancient texts that defy explanation, encounters with phenomena that challenge the limits of modern understanding. These mysteries wait quietly in the next part of our exploration, inviting us to step forward with curiosity, wonder, and an open mind. As our journey drifts beyond the realm of natural catastrophes, we step into a space where the ancient world begins to feel almost dreamlike, where documented history and inexplicable phenomena intersect in ways that leave even modern scientists quiet and contemplative. This is the domain of anomalies, events, artifacts, and descriptions recorded by ancient people that do not fit neatly into the frameworks we rely on today. These mysteries are neither entirely myth nor entirely science. They exist somewhere in between, suspended like dust motes in a beam of fading sunlight, waiting for those who are willing to look closer. Across the ancient world, there are stories of lights that moved through the sky with intelligence, sounds that vibrated the air without clear origin, and objects that fell from above bearing materials unknown to local craftsmen. Some of these accounts resemble meteors or comets, but others contain details that resist simple explanation. patterns of movement, sudden stops, shifts in direction, and luminous forms described in ways that mirror modern witness reports centuries before such language existed. Ancient texts from Rome, Greece, China, and India described shields of fire, stars that wander the earth, floating lamps, and chariots of the heavens that appeared in the sky for minutes or hours before vanishing. Modern scholars often categorize these descriptions as symbolic or exaggerated, yet their consistency across cultures remains difficult to ignore. The precise terminology changes with each civilization, shaped by cultural worldview, but the phenomenon they describe feels strangely familiar. One particularly intriguing aspect of these accounts is the emotional tone conveyed by the witnesses. Unlike myths created for storytelling, many of these records feel observational, calm, neutral, almost scientific. They describe what was seen, not what it meant. They avoid embellishment and simply document the event as part of the natural record. This tone suggests that the observers understood the difference between symbolic myth and unusual physical phenomena, even if they lacked the vocabulary to classify what they witnessed. Beyond written accounts, physical artifacts also introduce layers of mystery. Some ancient objects appear to contain materials or craftsmanship difficult to explain with the technology believed to exist at the time. Metal alloys that should not have been possible. Carvings that show detailed knowledge of anatomical, astronomical, or geological features. Batteries, lenses, clock-like mechanisms, and tools that seem to emerge centuries ahead of their accepted timeline. Each piece invites questions, and yet none offers clear answers. In some cases, the artifacts are so enigmatic that scientists debate whether they resulted from lost techniques, rare atmospheric events, or simply coincidences amplified by time. But occasionally, an object defies all reasonable explanation. It sits in museum glass, quiet and unassuming, yet radiating the unsettling sense that something about the past does not align with the story we've constructed. The deeper we explore, the more we notice a pattern. Many ancient anomalies involve the sky. Unusual lights, sounds without source, the sudden appearance of brightness in remote regions. These descriptions resemble modern accounts of atmospheric phenomena, such as ball lightning, plasma formations, auroras, or electrical discharges. Yet some events described by ancient observers display characteristics that go beyond known natural behavior. Movement patterns too controlled, durations too long, and interactions too deliberate. Then there are the stories of encounters, not with gods or spirits, but with figures described as luminous, otherworldly, or possessing knowledge far beyond human understanding. Ancient people interpreted these beings through the lens of their spiritual beliefs, but the consistency of these encounters across cultures raises quiet curiosity. Were these experiences purely visionary? Were they symbolic metaphors for enlightenment or transformation? Or were they based on interactions with natural or atmospheric phenomena that appeared humanoid due to perspective and imagination? Modern science remains cautious. Researchers point out that psychological and environmental factors can influence perception, especially during rare celestial or geological events. Yet they also acknowledge that the universe is vast, complex, and filled with forces we do not fully grasp. What ancient people saw may not fit into simple categories because the universe itself is not simple. Perhaps the most puzzling aspects of ancient anomalies are the predictions found in old manuscripts and oral traditions. Predictions that align with events discovered or understood only in recent centuries. Some texts describe cycles of the sun, moon, and stars with accuracy that suggests deep astronomical knowledge. Others reference geological events, such as great quakes or volcanic eruptions long before they occurred. A few even contain descriptions that resemble modern scientific concepts: atoms, invisible forces, the expansion of the universe, or the movement of continents. Whether these were intuitive insights, coincidences, or remnants of earlier knowledge remains uncertain. These mysteries grow even more compelling when we examine ancient maps. Some depict coastlines as they would have appeared during the last ice age. Others show mountain ranges that had not yet been discovered by modern explorers. A few appear to include knowledge of longitude, something Western civilizations are not believed to have mastered until the 18th century. These details raise the possibility that ancient navigators possessed more advanced observational tools or inherited information from older sources now lost to history. Yet, for all the anomalies we uncover, one truth remains steady. The ancients approached the unknown with respect, curiosity, and imagination. They did not dismiss unusual phenomena. They preserved them. They understood that mysteries are not obstacles to understanding, but invitations to look deeper. They recorded their experiences with sincerity, trusting future generations to interpret them with clearer eyes. As we reflect on these ancient enigmas, a gentle awareness settles in. The world has always been filled with wonders that challenge comprehension. Even today, with advanced technology and global communication, we encounter unexplained events. Lights in the sky, sounds that defy measurement, geological anomalies, biological patterns that break expectation. The ancient world did not differ from ours in this regard. Only the language used to describe the unknown has changed. And so, as this chapter closes, we find ourselves standing at the edge of a delicate frontier, the border between what ancient people witnessed and what modern science can explain. The mysteries here are not meant to be solved in a single moment. They are reminders of the vastness of the universe, the limits of human knowledge, and the enduring power of curiosity. Gently, the path opens once again, guiding us toward the next phase of this journey, where the interplay between ancient memory and scientific discovery becomes even richer, and where the mysteries left behind by our ancestors invite us to reevaluate the boundaries of possibility. As we gently step forward from the realm of ancient anomalies and unexplained encounters, a quiet realization begins to take shape. The mysteries we have explored so far, lights that behaved with impossible intelligence, artifacts crafted with inexplicable skill, predictions that came true centuries later, create a landscape where the past no longer feels like a distant story. Instead, it feels alive, connected to us through a series of subtle threads. These clues do not merely describe isolated events. They form a web that stretches across time, linking ancient questions with modern discoveries, scientific inquiry with spiritual curiosity, and history with imagination. This is the moment in our journey where reflection meets transition. We begin to see how each mystery does not stand alone, but rather acts as a stepping stone toward a broader understanding of humanity's place in the universe. The more we uncover, the more we sense that the ancients may have possessed a worldview that embraced complexity and wonder far more fluidly than we do today. Instead of dividing the world into the explainable and the unexplainable, they allowed both to coexist. Their interpretations flowed naturally between practical observation and metaphysical meaning. In this seamless blending, they created narratives that held emotional truth, symbolic beauty, and scientific insight all at once. Modern science often separates these elements, favoring clarity and measurable results. But as we reflect on the ancient world, we begin to notice that some truths cannot be measured with instruments or recorded through numbers alone. Some truths must be felt, understood in quiet flashes of intuition, sensed in the stillness of contemplation, or recognized in the symmetry of patterns that appear again and again across civilizations. The ancients may not have had modern tools, but they possessed a depth of perception shaped by silence, repetition, and intimate relationship with the natural world. They noticed what we often overlook. This bridge in our journey invites us to consider not only what the ancients saw, but how they saw it. Their world was filled with a sense of connection between sky and earth, between physical forces and spiritual beliefs, between cycles of nature and cycles of human life. They understood that everything shared a rhythm, and so their explanations for unusual phenomena were not attempts to create fantasy, but attempts to fit extraordinary events into an already interconnected universe. As we ponder this, modern discoveries begin to echo ancient insights in unexpected ways. Technologies like deep space telescopes reveal structures in the cosmos that resemble the geometric forms found in ancient art. Quantum research uncovers principles of energy and vibration that mirror the spiritual concepts recorded in early manuscripts. Geological studies confirm catastrophic events preserved in myth. Neuroscience explores consciousness in ways that resonate with ancient descriptions of altered states and expanded awareness. It is as though we are rediscovering knowledge the ancients once held intuitively, knowledge that drifted out of reach as languages changed, civilizations fell, and humanity moved toward a more fragmented understanding of the world. This realization does not diminish science. Instead, it enriches it. The mysteries of the ancient world remind us that our quest for understanding did not begin in laboratories or universities. It began in deserts, forests, mountains, and coastlines, where early observers watched the world with patience and humility. Their questions were the same as ours. What lies beyond the visible? What forces shape our lives? What is our role in the vastness of existence? And as we walk this delicate bridge into the next chapter, the answers they sought begin to feel strangely familiar. We, too, search for meaning in the patterns of the cosmos. We, too, wonder about life beyond our world. We, too, experience the tension between the known and the unknown. This connecting point in our journey brings calm clarity. The mysteries of the past are not relics contained in dusty ruins. They are mirrors reflecting aspects of ourselves. Each anomaly, each story, each unexplained artifact invites us to expand our perspective. They remind us that curiosity is timeless, that wonder is a universal language, and that the unknown is not a wall, but a doorway. As the path ahead opens softly, we prepare to step into the next mysteries, those that explore the deeper scientific puzzles intertwined with the ancient world. In the quiet transition between reflection and discovery, we feel a shift. The journey grows more intricate, more intimate, inviting us to look not only outward at the civilizations that came before, but inward at the parts of ourselves that still long for understanding. As we move deeper into this journey, the mysteries of the ancient world begin to weave themselves into a broader, scientific tapestry, one that challenges the boundaries of what we believe is possible. The clues left behind by long-lost civilizations do not simply raise historical questions. They intersect with some of the most complex puzzles modern science still struggles to solve. And in this gentle twilight between ancient memory and present-day discovery, we find ourselves contemplating the universal forces that govern both them and us. Forces that shaped their world with the same quiet persistence with which they shape ours. Across centuries, scientific advancements have allowed us to peer into the fabric of the universe with astonishing precision. We study distant stars, map tectonic plates, decode the structure of matter, and trace the origins of life itself. Yet the deeper we delve, the more we encounter mysteries that mirror the questions posed by the ancients. Paradoxes that whisper familiar echoes. Phenomena that feel like modern reflections of ancient interpretations. It is as if we are walking in a circular path, arriving once again at questions that civilizations thousands of years old contemplated in their own symbolic language. Some of the most compelling overlaps arise when we look to the stars. Modern astronomers map cosmic structures stretching across billions of light years, revealing intricate webs of galaxies bound by invisible forces. These patterns, vast, symmetrical, almost geometric, bear a strange resemblance to the mandalas, spirals, and sacred designs carved and painted by ancient cultures. While the ancients could not have seen these cosmic structures with their eyes, they seem to understand intuitively that the universe was organized through recurring patterns. Their symbolic expressions now appear eerily aligned with the underlying mathematics of the cosmos. Just as intriguing is the modern study of energy and frequency. Quantum physics shows us that everything, matter, light, even empty space, is shaped by vibration. The ancients, in their rituals and architecture, seem to grasp this concept centuries earlier. They constructed temples that resonate at specific frequencies, built instruments designed to alter consciousness, and practiced chants that align with natural harmonic rhythms. Their understanding was not framed in equations, but in experience, observation, and intuition. When modern research reveals that sound waves can levitate particles, heal tissues, or alter brain states, these ancient practices suddenly feel less mysterious and more like early expressions of universal principles. Another scientific puzzle that quietly connects us to the past lies in the Earth itself. Plate tectonics, magnetic reversals, and geological cycles are now understood with precision. Yet many ancient cultures appear to have predicted these rhythms long before scientific instruments existed. They placed temples on fault lines where Earth's energy is most intense, aligned monuments with magnetic north even when the poles shifted, and recorded cycles of destruction and renewal in myths that mirror geological epochs. Some scientists dismiss these patterns as coincidence, but others see a deeper connection, a recognition that the ancients may have been more attuned to the Earth's subtle signals than we can imagine. Life, too, holds mysteries that echo across time. Modern biologists struggle to explain the origins of consciousness, a phenomenon that ancient philosophers contemplated with startling depth. They described consciousness not as a function of the brain alone, but as an interconnected field, something that flows through all living beings. Today, research into neural networks, bioelectric fields, and collective behavior of organisms continues to uncover layers of complexity that resemble the holistic worldview preserved in ancient texts. The more we study the brain, the more we recognize how little we truly understand about awareness, intuition, and memory. The ancients approached these mysteries not through microscopes, but through meditation, ritual, and introspection. Their insights still resonate, even in the age of neuroscience. Perhaps the most intriguing scientific parallel, however, lies in the realm of cosmology. The ancients spoke of cycles of creation and destruction, of universes that expand and contract, of ages that rise and fall in great cosmic rhythms. These mythological descriptions bear a quiet resemblance to modern theories of the universe's expansion, entropy, and potential collapse. While we frame these ideas in terms of dark energy, thermodynamics, and cosmic inflation, the symbolic language of the ancients points to a remarkably similar understanding, that the universe is not static, but ever-changing, guided by forces far beyond human control. This blending of scientific inquiry and ancient interpretation creates a sense of harmony, a bridge between two ways of knowing. Neither approach is complete on its own, yet together they offer a more expansive vision of reality. The ancients did not distinguish sharply between science, philosophy, and spirituality. To them, the world was woven from single cloth, where every force had meaning, every pattern had purpose. Modern scientific frameworks, though more specialized, often lead us back to similar conclusions, that we are part of a deeply interconnected universe, shaped by rhythms and energies that ripple across space and time. As we reflect on these connections, a gentle sense of humility settles in. The mysteries that puzzled ancient observers remain just as powerful today. Despite all our instruments, algorithms, and data, there are still questions that lie beyond reach. Questions about the nature of consciousness, the origins of life, the structure of the cosmos, and the invisible forces that shape reality. These mysteries remind us that human knowledge, no matter how advanced, is always incomplete. And perhaps that incompleteness is not a flaw, but an invitation, a call to continue exploring with wonder, curiosity, and an open mind. This chapter in our journey carries us from ancient symbols to scientific theories, from mythic memory to empirical discovery. It shows us that the quest for understanding is timeless, shared across generations and civilizations. It reminds us that the ancients were not merely early steps on humanity's path, but partners in an ongoing conversation about existence itself. And as the quiet echoes of their wisdom blend with the discoveries of our own age, we find ourselves guided toward the final mysteries that await us. those that touch not only the outer world, but the inner world as well. The path continues forward, soft and shimmering, leading us toward the closing chapters where reflection, insight, and wonder meet in a quiet convergence. As we step softly from the realm where ancient insight brushes against modern science, we enter a quieter space, a moment of reflection that acts as a gentle bridge toward the final mysteries of our journey. Up until now, we have explored vast structures that defy engineering logic, rituals rooted in cosmic harmony, disasters that shaped entire civilizations, and scientific puzzles that mirror the very questions ancient minds pondered. Now, the path narrows into something more intimate. The mysteries before us are no longer just carved in stone or encoded in celestial patterns. They begin to settle into the human story itself, into memory, belief, intuition, and the quiet ways in which the past continues to echo inside us. When we consider the vastness of what the ancients left behind, a delicate theme becomes clear. The mysteries of the world were not separate from the mysteries of the self. The line between external and internal dissolved in ancient understanding. The sky was not just above them. It was reflected within their stories, dreams, and philosophies. The earth beneath their feet was not simply a foundation, but a living presence that shaped their emotions and guided their rituals. In this older worldview, the natural forces they observed were intertwined with human experience in a way that feels both foreign and familiar to us now. As modern humans, we often view the world as something to study from the outside. Data, measurements, and analysis help us understand external patterns, but they sometimes leave little room for the subtler truths, the ones felt rather than seen. The ancients, however, leaned into these quieter forms of knowing. They believed wisdom came not only from observation, but from intuition, contemplation, and listening deeply to the rhythms of life. These inner experiences became woven into myth, symbolism, and sacred practices that carried emotional and spiritual resonance across generations. This bridge section invites us to consider that perhaps some mysteries cannot be solved purely through scientific discovery or historical reconstruction. Some must be approached with patience, stillness, and the willingness to let imagination rest alongside logic. When we look at ancient structures aligned with stars, we see engineering and astronomy, but the ancients saw purpose, identity, belonging. When we read myths of sky beings or cosmic cycles, we see metaphor, but they saw meaning woven into the structure of existence itself. Their understanding of the world blended outer events with inner reflection in a way that feels strangely harmonious. In many ways, modern science is slowly rediscovering the importance of this harmony. Studies on consciousness reveal complexities that echo ancient philosophical ideas. Research on the mind-body connection validates practices once dismissed as superstition. Explorations into the universe's origins return again and again to cyclical patterns described in ancient cosmologies. Even our fascination with mystery itself, the desire to know, to search, to explore, feels like an inheritance from those early humans who gazed at the night sky with just as much wonder as we do today. It is here that we pause and reflect on how these mysteries shape us, not as archaeologists or scientists, but as human beings trying to make sense of our place in the world. The ancients left behind questions that transcend time. What forces govern existence? Why do patterns repeat across generations and civilizations? What is consciousness, and where does it come from? Why does the universe feel both vast and deeply connected at the same time? These questions linger not because the past failed to answer them, but because they're the kind of questions that invite ongoing contemplation. They remind us that knowledge is not a destination, but a journey, one shaped by curiosity, humility, and an openness to possibilities that lie beyond the limits of what we currently understand. As we move forward from this moment of reflection, the final chapters of our journey begin to take shape. The remaining mysteries will guide us into the heart of human meaning, into the legends, memories, and philosophical insights that reveal how ancient people understood life, death, purpose, and the unseen forces that guide the human experience. These final explorations will not just uncover more anomalies. They will illuminate how mystery itself has shaped civilization from its earliest days until now. And so, with a quiet breath and a softened mind, we prepare to step into the last stretch of this long, winding path, a place where the external mysteries of the world turn inward, merging with the deepest layers of human reflection. The journey continues, more intimate now, more contemplative, carrying us gently toward the questions that linger at the threshold between history and the human spirit. As the path narrows toward the final stretch of this journey, we begin to enter territory where history softens into something more personal, something shaped as much by the human heart as by the physical world around it. After exploring monuments, cosmic alignments, forgotten sciences, and ancient catastrophes, we now turn toward the mysteries that dwell within humanity itself. The stories that shaped belief, the symbols that carried hidden messages, and the legends that refused to fade even when entire civilizations vanished. These mysteries linger not in stone or in the stars, but in the collective memory of our species, preserved through whispers, rituals, and quiet reflections passed from one generation to the next. Across the ancient world, there are stories that revolve around profound human experiences: birth and death, transformation and awakening, journeys into the unknown and returns to the familiar. These stories, expressed through mythology, poetry, and ritual, were not seen as fictional accounts, but as mirrors of deeper truths. They were used to explain the cycles of nature, the rhythms of consciousness, and the shifts in human destiny. And somehow, these myths, despite arising from cultures separated by oceans and centuries, share themes so strikingly similar that they seem to point toward a universal understanding of the human condition. One of the most recurring motifs found in these stories is the idea of descent and return, a journey into darkness followed by a rising into light. Ancient cultures used this pattern not only to describe the movements of celestial bodies, but also to map inner transformation. Egyptian texts speak of the sun god traveling through the underworld only to rise again at dawn. Greek myths describe heroes entering labyrinths or shadow realms and emerging wiser, changed, or reborn. Indigenous traditions tell of shamans descending into unseen worlds to retrieve knowledge or restore balance. These narratives echo a shared recognition that growth often comes through facing the unknown, and that mystery is a necessary companion on the path to understanding. Modern psychology, interestingly, mirrors these ancient insights. Concepts such as the shadow self, the subconscious mind, and transformative crisis reflect the same symbolic patterns found in myths thousands of years old. It is as if the ancients intuitively grasped aspects of human consciousness that science is only now beginning to articulate. Their stories encoded truths not through technical language, but through metaphor, rhythm, and archetype, forms of expression that resonate at emotional and intuitive levels. Another mystery woven through ancient narratives is the persistent belief in interconnectedness, a sense that all life is linked through unseen threads. Many cultures described a life force or subtle energy that flowed through people, animals, plants, and even the land itself. In India, this was called prana. In China, qi. In indigenous traditions, it took many names but reflected the same idea, that existence was not compartmentalized but part of a continuous web. Ceremonies, dances, chants, and healing practices were designed to maintain harmony within this web. Modern science, through fields like ecology, neuroscience, and quantum physics, now acknowledges forms of interconnectedness that echo these ancient views. The idea that thoughts, emotions, or biological rhythms can influence the environment and be influenced by it no longer feels mystical but measurable. Yet the ancients grasped this intuitively long before scientific tools made it observable. They listened to the natural world with patience and humility, recognizing patterns that remain relevant even today. As we drift deeper into these symbolic mysteries, another theme emerges: the belief that knowledge was never meant to be held by a single generation. Ancient people created initiation rituals, storytelling traditions, and ceremonial practices to pass wisdom forward. Unlike modern societies, where information can be lost in the rush of progress, ancient cultures understood that knowledge required preservation through repetition. They encoded insights into songs, carvings, dances, and myths, mediums resilient enough to survive the erosion of time. Some of these teachings focused on virtues: courage, compassion, balance, discipline. Others emphasized humility before the forces of nature or the vastness of the cosmos. But perhaps the most profound teachings were those that addressed the human heart: how to grieve, how to forgive, how to find meaning in suffering, how to recognize beauty in everyday life. These were not merely moral lessons. They were existential tools designed to help humanity navigate the emotional landscape of existence. Throughout the ancient world, we also find stories of teachers, sages, or enlightened beings who appeared during pivotal times. These figures are described not as conquerors or rulers, but as guides, individuals who carried wisdom so transformative that their influence endured long after their earthly lives ended. Whether these figures were entirely historical, partially mythological, or symbolic representations of human potential is difficult to determine. What matters is that their stories resonated deeply enough to become anchors in the evolution of human consciousness. Modern scholars sometimes interpret these figures as reflections of humanity's desire to understand the unknown. But another perspective suggests that they symbolize the potential within every human being, the possibility of awakening, growth, and self-discovery. The ancients may have seen these guides not as unreachable beings, but as examples of what humans could become when aligned with the deeper truths of existence. As we explore these intangible mysteries, we begin to recognize that the ancient world was not only concerned with external phenomena, but with internal landscapes, dreams, instincts, fears, hopes, and questions that continue to shape human life today. Their myths and rituals offered frameworks for navigating the complexities of emotion and consciousness. They provided comfort during times of loss, clarity during moments of confusion, and meaning in the face of uncertainty. This introspective chapter also reminds us that mystery is not merely a puzzle to be solved, but an experience to be lived. The ancient world did not shy away from the unknown. Instead, it invited people to embrace it, to sit with it, honor it, and allow it to deepen their understanding of themselves and the world around them. This acceptance of mystery as a companion, rather than an adversary, gave ancient cultures a sense of harmony that feels deeply relevant to our modern lives. As this section draws to a close, we begin to sense that we are nearing the heart of our journey. The path ahead will lead us toward the final mysteries, those that intertwine history with destiny, science with philosophy, and the stories of the ancients with the quiet reflections of the present. These last chapters will not only reveal more about the past, but will also invite us to reflect on ourselves, our place in the world, and the questions that still stir softly within the human spirit. As we move gently from the deep well of ancient human stories into the final stretch of this long journey, a soft transition begins to unfold, one that bridges the timeless mysteries of the past with the quiet introspection of the present. Up until now, we have explored legends, symbols, scientific puzzles, forgotten knowledge, and celestial wonders. We have walked through underground chambers, stood before impossible monuments, and listened to whispers of civilizations long gone. Yet as we approach the end, the narrative begins to shift from outward exploration to inward reflection. The mysteries ahead are not about what the ancients built or recorded, but what their stories awaken within us. At this point in the journey, a tender realization takes shape. The ancient world did not survive through stone alone. It survived through memory, through the stories we continue to tell, the questions we continue to ask, and a sense of wonder that refuses to fade. Mystery, in many ways, has become a companion to humanity. It guides our curiosity, shapes our imagination, It inspires us to reach beyond the limits of what we know. The ancients understood this intimately. They embraced mystery not as a barrier, but as a guidepost, a force that encouraged them to seek meaning both in the world around them and in the quiet landscapes within their own hearts. As we reflect on everything uncovered so far, a pattern emerges. Ancient mysteries persist, not because they are unsolved, but because they speak to something universal. They echo the longing in every human era to understand the unseen, to make sense of existence, and to find connection across time. When we stand before the ruins of a forgotten city or read a myth thousands of years old, the feeling that stirs within us is not merely curiosity, it is recognition. A sense that someone, long before we were born, asked the same questions we ask today. This bridge section invites us to step back from the specifics, the dates, the artifacts, the legends, and instead consider the larger tapestry. What does it mean that ancient people so often mirror the mysteries we encounter now? Why do their stories resonate with such emotional clarity? Why do the same patterns appear again and again across civilizations separated by oceans and centuries? These are not coincidences. They remind us that human beings, no matter the era, share a core experience: the yearning to understand the world, the desire to find meaning, and the instinct to seek connection with something greater than ourselves. Modern life is filled with noise and speed, yet the questions the ancients asked continue to echo in our quieter moments. We still look toward the stars with wonder. We still feel humbled by natural forces. We still sense that there are layers of existence we cannot fully grasp. And in these ways, the ancient world continues to live within us, not as relics of a distant past, but as threads woven into the fabric of human consciousness. As we move closer to the final reflections of our journey, the mysteries begin to soften. They become less about answering questions and more about appreciating the vastness of what remains unknown. The ancients did not seek definitive explanations for everything. Instead, they cultivated a kind of peaceful coexistence with the mysteries of the universe. They allowed uncertainty to coexist with understanding, embracing both with equal reverence. There is something deeply comforting in this approach, a reminder that not everything in life needs to be solved to hold value. This moment acts as a gentle bridge into the final chapter, where the narrative will turn inward, drawing together all the threads we have followed. The monuments, the myths, the scientific puzzles, the cosmic alignments, and the stories of human resilience. All of them have guided us toward a deeper understanding of the relationship between mystery and meaning. What remains now is reflection, a quiet return to the present moment, carrying with us the insights gleaned from the ancient world. As we prepare to step into the concluding reflections, a soft awareness settles in. The mysteries of the past are not merely about what happened long ago. They are about the human capacity to wonder, to dream, to seek, and to question. They remind us that even in a world illuminated by knowledge, there will always be shadows where possibilities dwell, shadows that inspire, comfort, and humble us. And so, as we cross this bridge into the final chapter, we carry with us the stillness of the ancient world, the echoes of forgotten civilizations, and the quiet realization that mystery itself is a gift, one that invites us to approach life with curiosity, humility, and reverence.